evening and welcome to a Sunday night live stream as we approach the weekly candle close. Bitcoin currently trading around $64,700, holding the weekly 200 MA once again, and that is why we are pretty confident to say the bottom is in for Bitcoin. We think the next move higher is going to start very soon, and I'll talk about one of the reasons why, if not a few of the reasons why, tonight. We've been talking about it for a while. We've been mentioning for a while we thought the bottom was in, but I think it's becoming clearer day after day that barring a black swan event, Bitcoin has bottomed. We've put in the lowest weekly candle close probably of 2026, and we can start building some confidence in the market over the next few weeks. We'll cover it all tonight. Get your questions in, get topics you want covered as well. We're going to give away some Solana to some of the best questions that come in, and we will talk about what is to come for the rest of the year. Some cryptos we're bullish on, some altcoins we're bullish on and why, and we'll talk about probably the way I think the crypto market is going to play out over the next 12 months. So let's focus on Bitcoin to start with. I think Bitcoin's kind of just plodded along for the last few weeks. If we go down to the 3-day time frame, you can see the lowest 3-day candle close was back in June. Since then we've just kind of grinded higher. This slow sideways grind, similar summer price movement we see time and time again. Big reason for that is the fact that Wall Street are away for the summer. They go to the beach for the summer. The trading volumes are down, and to be honest, this boring sideways phase is what kills traders and investors the most. Most people can handle the up, they can handle the down, but the sideways market absolutely fries their brain. And I think we're seeing that all over X. We're starting to see people either chase gains in the AI trade, tell people that the crypto market's never going to recover, or we're seeing people just become completely not interested. As you can see, we did have a bit of a local top around $67,000. We do need to break this level here around $67,500. You can see on the daily time frame it's a bit more obvious. Once we break above that, the next key level is 72k. 72k has always been a key level for Bitcoin. The 200-day moving average now sits there. I don't think that's a coincidence. I do think we will get up towards that over the next 2 weeks, and a big part of that is going to be the Fed. Now, if we look across the market, we can see Ethereum. Ethereum's really been showing some strength. We'll cover that shortly as well, but Ethereum starting to show some strength versus Bitcoin. Even today, it's up 2% versus Bitcoin's 0.5%. And you can see since June, we have put in higher lows and higher highs. Really strong performance from Ethereum. If we can get above this $1,950 area, I do think we'll tackle this 200-day moving average around 2,140 right now, and then from there I think this is going to prove an important level around $2,400. But Ethereum starting to show real strength, and I think that will be good for the altcoin market in time. XRP lagging behind. Most altcoins are, to be honest. Cardano, BNB still down at the lows. Solana, a bit of a resurgence, but kind of tailing off. Dogecoin as well, way down on its lows as well. So right now, Bitcoin and Ethereum are leading the way. Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin slightly, but I think until we get through this week's FOMC, I don't expect to see any real price action. We normally see a de-risking approaching these big events, and I do think that's why we've probably seen a quieter few days as well. Let's jump out the chat, see who's all in. We have Jack, we've got Ben, let's see, AC Build says, how have you coped during this time? I think over the last few months we've really focused on CC Pro and delivering member content only. I think during that time it's important. It was a really tough time. I think anyone that was in the market over the last 6 months knows it's been a tough time mentally to stay strong and to stay convicted in your holdings, and that's why we kind of wanted to focus on CC Pro members rather than just public live streams. I think we are getting to the light at the end of the tunnel now, and I think now it's time that people get really excited for the crypto market. And I think we're probably a few weeks before people are going to start regret not buying the bottom. I think right now people are still hesitant, and you always see that. If we go back to 2022, the bear market caused by FTX and Luna and things like that, all through this period here, people were still calling for 12k, 10k, 8k. They were still calling for lower all through this period here, while Bitcoin continued to grind higher and higher and higher. And it wasn't really until we broke this 32k level that people started to get excited, and then everybody just piled in and was regretting not buying the lows because it had been staring them in the face. I think we're getting close to that. I think once we get above 85k, everybody will flip bullish and regret buying the bottom. But I think once for me anyway, the clear signal was the 200-day moving average. Once we're above 72k, I think we're in the clear. I think we can look to skies above type price movement. But I think the real FOMO will kick in once we break this level, $83,000, which was the high from May. I think that's where we start to see all the bears convert to bulls. We start to see excitement. We start to see hype in the market. I think that's probably the key level for the FOMOing into the market to start. But anyone that pays attention to the market, these are the days where, if you can scoop up as much crypto as possible, no financial advice, but these are the times you want to be buying, when there is still a lot of fear in the market, but there is good signs to suggest that the bottom is in. That would be my advice. GMCM says, what's your thoughts on a few coins? We'll cover a few of them. And Shiv says you got a tan. UK, I was in Italy for 10 days. I'll blame Italy rather than the UK, although the UK has been pretty decent recently. And that's a prime example. People just take time off to go and enjoy the summer. So that's why markets are a bit more sideways at this time of year. Let's touch on Sol, because I want to touch on Solana, and we'll probably talk about Solana a lot over the coming few months. But I think Solana's kind of consolidated and then put in a new low. From there, it's bounced and now is consolidating here, forming some support. I think Solana is going to be one of the top performers over the next 6 months. I think they've got a lot coming on chain. They brought a sovereign wealth fund on chain a few days ago. And I do think that RWAs are going to be a big part of the next run for the markets. You're starting to see large pools of capital come on chain because RWAs and tokenized assets are easy for institutions and TradFi to understand. And I think Solana is positioned itself as one of the best places to build or launch RWAs. So I think the low is in for Solana. I think anyone that scooped it up around the $60 mark, we were posting about it in CC Pro, you'll have done very well, and you should be pretty happy that you're already up. Even if you bought the candlestick low, you're up, nearly 20%. Solana's got so much to go, especially if they pass this new resolution that's going to make it less inflationary. I think that's going to be really bullish for Solana long term. Let's have a look. I've got a few news stories that we'll cover, not too many, and then we'll focus on some altcoins, the Ethereum versus Bitcoin chart, Bitcoin dominance, and we'll talk a bit about AI and stablecoins as well. This one, just because a lot of people are going to be Scottish, interested to see today that tax hike in Scotland's led to less revenue. Less a crypto one, just I thought it was interesting to share with so many of our Scottish viewers. This one, I know CC Pro, we've been buying gold and silver since, for years, but really went hard 2022. Interested to see that there's still, for every ounce of physical silver, there's 358 ounces of paper silver. I actually think this is going to cause a massive silver explosion over the next couple of years, because I think people are going to lose trust in the traditional paper institutions. Big week ahead. We have a huge macro week. We obviously have the FOMC. We also have Microsoft and Meta earnings, which I expect not to be great for their stock price. We've then got PCE inflation, advanced GDP, and then we've got the Bank of England and the Bank of Japan rates before Apple and Amazon earnings, and MicroStrategy as well. MicroStrategies will probably be pretty poor given the price of Bitcoin. So we've got three of the major central banks, Bank of England, Bank of Japan, and the US Central Bank, all making rate decisions this week. The US will hold steady. Expect the Bank of England to hold steady, and the Bank of Japan might hike. Overall, a bit of a mixed bag, but we can talk about that shortly. Next story, Charles Schwab is now calling for Crypto Clarity Act. It's interesting, we are starting to see major financial institutions call for the passing of the Clarity Act. I think once that happens, we will see some real flows into crypto. Big news this week, Ascendex, BitMEX, and now Bitmart are all closing their centralized exchanges down. We've said for ages we're bullish on Swissborg, super bullish on the way Swissborg operate, and bearish on centralized exchanges because they wash trade, they manipulate price, there's no transparency. Do they have the funds that they say they have? Do they rehypothecate? All those games that go on with centralized exchanges, we've always been pretty bearish on them overall as a category or a industry. Now it looks like the bear market's starting to take its toll on centralized exchanges. I also think long term, more and more people are going to move to self-custody, so wallets like Phantom, Solflare, MetaMask. I think people want their assets off centralized exchanges because it allows them to use their assets to borrow and lend, to earn yield in DeFi, but also the rise of AI agents that are going to control people's portfolio. They're not going to use centralized exchanges, just like they're not going to use fiat currency. They're going to use decentralized wallets and decentralized exchanges, and I think this just sums this up. I think that's the way the market's going to shift. Bitcoin Magazine, there's another one. Fidelity endorsing the Clarity Act as well. So we're starting to see massive wealthy institutions pushing for the Clarity Act to be passed. Probably means two things. One, it's going to benefit them. Two, it's probably going to pass. And then lastly, this is kind of what I was talking about. Franklin Templeton says the rise of AI agents is going to become a killer use case for blockchain. Agentic commerce projected to reach 3 to 5 trillion by 2030. So micropayments, cross-border payments, full transparency, see what your agent's doing. It's all recorded on the blockchain. And that's why I think DEXs are going to have a great time of it in the future months and years. Let's see what else is happening. Let me jump over to CC Pro. All right, let's touch on a few things. So, Bitcoin currently trading around $64,700. The reason I think, and we covered this in CC Pro, so apologies for kind of duplicating, but I think, in fact, let me pull up a chart that will show it. I think a lot of the bad news is now behind the market. So we had the Iran war. The Iran war looks like it's going to come to a close pretty soon. We had inflation fears. We had pretty much everything. Bond market meltdown, inflation was going to go to 10%. None of these things transpired. I think the AI trade's starting to slow down. I don't think it's ending. I think it's going to have a 3 to 6 month slowdown period because it got ahead of itself and now it's cooling off a little bit. If we look at what the Fed's likely to do on Wednesday, odds of a rate hike have actually risen quite a bit, but still, for me, there's no chance they're going to hike rates. I think the only chance they've got of hiking rates is if this is their last one for the year. I don't think that's going to happen with inflation coming in cooler than expected. I think they're going to hold rates steady. And I actually think as inflation starts to cool as the year goes on, I think we'll start to see chances of the market actually pricing in a cut. I think that's going to be super bullish for markets. So I think we'll see a de-risking in Bitcoin. The next FOMC is 2 months after. I think by then you've got 2 inflation prints that are going to show cooling inflation, and that's going to start to make the market question whether a rate hike's ever going to happen again for the next year, or actually if the more likely scenario is that we get a cut in early 2027, if not the back end of 2026. I think, could we get a cut in October right before the midterms? Potentially, or we get one January, March time. That, for me, is going to be the signal for the markets. I think if we did get a hike, that would be really bearish. I think if we'd see Bitcoin back down to the lows, I don't think that's likely to happen. I think by Monday afternoon we'll know better, but I think markets will be almost 99% chance that we're not going to have a hike on Wednesday. And Kevin Walsh himself has said he's going to take time to digest the data, understand what's going on with the economy before we see that interest rate move. So I think that'll be bullish for Bitcoin. I think what we will see as well is we'll probably see the S&P 500 sell off a little bit with big tech earnings this week. I think big tech is starting to be impacted by the AI trade. I think they've spent a lot on data centers and they've not got the power yet, and I think AI will probably start to unwind a little bit over the next 6 months. Gold, I think if we don't get a hike, I think gold will probably be a lot higher by the end of the year. I think we are getting close to putting in a low for gold and silver. I think, could silver go a bit lower? I think it could probably come down to this kind of $50 level, but there is a good chance that the low is in, and if we get any hints of a cut, gold and silver will rally with Bitcoin towards the end of the year. Lewis Glasgow's joined us. LHHIH, he said still buying Alvaro. I've not bought any in a while. We've been saying in CC Pro that we're kind of consolidating our buys around more around actually focusing on, you know, kind of Bitcoin, Solana, bigger caps right now, because that's where it's really deep value. I think as they start to rise, then as the market rises, you can kind of more go chasing risk. But I think right now, consolidating your portfolio makes more sense, and focusing on some of the bigger coins is the smart move. Ian Mack, yes, I did buy into the Vala vault on Swissborg. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the company went bust, unfortunately. I don't know that officially, but there's been no TG. I think they were meant to TG like over a year ago. So, in fact, more than that, probably about 18 months ago. So, yeah, I don't know what's happening with that. In fact, I wonder if I've got... I don't even know what the Twitter is. Let me see if I've got it. Is it Vala app or something like that? Can't remember. I'll try and drop a update on it, but yeah, I thought it was following them. Maybe they've deleted it, to be fair. But yeah, I don't think the TG is happening. Let's talk about Uniswap. So we were actually live last Monday on Alpha and for CC Pro members, and we said Uniswap was just grinding up. It looked really healthy. It was consolidating just below the 200-day moving average. In fact, you can see it there. That was the Monday candle here, this green candle here, consolidating right below the 200-day moving average. And we said if it breaks that, that would be a really bullish sign. It's broke it, and we are now up quite a nice bit since then, up 7.5%. Looks like we're building support on the 200-day moving average, and I think, let's have a look. Let's zoom out. I think if once we kind of break above this level here, this 418 level, I think Uniswap could start to move quite quickly. I've been bullish on Uniswap for ages. I think one of the reasons I'm so bullish on Uniswap is I believe that AI agents are going to conduct a lot of portfolio rebalancing, buys, sells. You're going to use AI agents for it in the future. Probably by the end of the year, you'll be able to talk to an AI agent and manage your portfolio without ever actually having to physically buy and sell. There's already apps out there that you can do it with. There's already TradFi apps, there's crypto apps where you can just talk to the AI agent and tell it what you want. Tell it to rebalance your portfolio, tell it to de-risk, add risk, whatever. All those transactions are going to happen on DEXs, like decentralized exchanges like Uniswap, Sushi, PancakeSwap, Jupiter, all these places. And that's why I believe Uniswap's positioned to be one of the biggest gainers of AI managing crypto portfolios. The Uniswap token also buys and burns every time there's volume, so The more volumes, the more buy and burn on the token, the more pressure for it to rise. The other way, if anyone ever, hopefully everybody watching the stream, hopefully everybody uses AI every single day. Hopefully everybody's using AI a lot. But the way it does things, it does it in like mass. You ask it a question, it doesn't just go and answer the question with one source. It goes and burns hundreds and thousands of tokens answering queries. When you tell it to do something financially, it's going to do it in small micro payments. So if you ask it to buy $1,000 of Solana, it's going to go and search the best places to buy it. It's going to bridge it. It's going to find the best liquidity so that there's less slippage, and it'll buy in tiny little batches, but it'll happen instantly, so you won't even know it happens. That's going to just cause volumes on these dexes to go absolutely parabolic, and that's why I think something like Uniswap, Sushi eventually, once it actually starts to catch a bit of a bid, I think could be very valuable. And I think Jupiter is similar, and also in a similar place. It's holding the 200-day moving average as support. So I think one of the big themes of the next 12 months in crypto is going to be revenue, fees, how they actually are profitable businesses, not just a crypto token that is a good idea and might one day go up 100x in value. What more questions are going to come of crypto projects is, how do you generate revenue, how do you build for the long term, and why can you continue to invest in marketing and development costs? And I think revenue and fees is going to be a big part of it. I think Ethereum's a big winner in that situation as well, because we know the fees and the revenue on Ethereum are very strong. All right, drop any questions you've got, anything you want covered. Somebody asked about VeChain earlier. Still, I think, in fact, before we cover VeChain, let's just talk about Bitcoin dominance in the ETH BTC chart. So Bitcoin dominance on the weekly, we've covered this quite a few times recently on CC Pro, but it's basically been consolidating sideways since August. You know, kind of in this range. We kind of popped up above 60%, briefly came back down, and we've been between 58% and the 60% level most of the time since August, apart from this brief period. I think Bitcoin dominance is just consolidating. I think we do start to see it roll over as liquidity flows into crypto. I think Bitcoin's done well, and I think Bitcoin will lead the next rally. But I do think dominance, I've said it before, I think this 66% is the top for dominance. And I think we'll see other projects start to catch a lot of relief. Having said that, if we look at Ethereum versus Bitcoin, you can see it's obviously leading the way. Ethereum dominance up at 10.5%, so showing real strength. The rest of the altcoin market, really nothing, still down at the bottom. On the weekly, not really showing too much signs of life. So really the altcoin market is being carried by Ethereum right now, and the total crypto market has been dominated by Bitcoin and Ethereum. And until that turns around, I think projects like Gala, VeChain, pretty much every other crypto is still going to underperform the market, because we've not got that liquidity, that kind of breadth of the market. And it's basically the exact same thing we've seen in the stock market with the Russell. So all through this period here, all through this period here, the S&P 500 was showing real strength. It was putting in all-time highs. The Nasdaq was putting on all-time highs, and the breadth just never ever came for Russell. And eventually it broke out, and we could see it going from strength to strength, putting in new all-time highs as well. We've not seen that in crypto yet. I do think we'll get it at the back end of this year, but I do think Bitcoin will lead the next rally. But if you look at the others chart, for example, basically still down in the lows set back in March and back to kind of November 2023 levels. So really no excitement for anything outside the top 10 yet, but that just takes time. People are still pretty risk averse when it comes to crypto, and obviously altcoins are the most risky part of the space. Lewis asks about the XPG team. To be fair, I've spoke to them a few times, mostly about Proper. We'll cover Proper in a minute because I do think Proper is a really good project and product, and it has really strong revenue as well. I think they're doing I think they're on course to do multiple $1 million revenue in their first 12 months, which is huge for a crypto project. But in terms of the export token, they're still signing partnerships. They've got a really strong team. They have 2 years of runway in terms of capital in the bank to pay for the business. That's without any additional revenue coming in. So that's a pretty strong position to be in. I guarantee if you did a survey of 1,000 crypto projects, maybe 3 or 4 would be in that type of position where they don't have to raise for the next 2 years and they'll still be fine without growing revenues. I don't know many crypto projects that are in that position. And obviously we're seeing project after project wind down, default, bankrupt, whatever you want to call it. We're seeing centralized exchanges do the same. So I think regardless of what our personal feelings are about export to Proper, I think one thing we can say is they're very well run businesses and they're set up to be maybe not successful as maybe optimistic, but they're at least set up to perform and be functional for the next 2 years. I think that's pretty bullish given how tough this bearish period has been on every other crypto business, project, team, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's pretty bullish. And I think eventually that will transpire into token performance. Alright, nice segue, Lewis, well played. Let's talk about Proper. So if anyone doesn't know what Proper is a prop trading firm built for crypto. I think I've got some old accounts. Yeah, I've got some. So let's just go into this. So you can do a free trial, and it basically just looks like any trading terminal you've probably used. Binance, BloFin, wherever you trade, it all looks the same as this. What a prop firm basically does for anyone new to the stream or new to trading, a prop firm basically gives you an amount of cash that you can trade with, and if you're profitable, you share the profits with the company. So in this case, they give you 5 grand, you trade with it, and you give them 20% of your profit if you're profitable, and you keep 80%. But it's really low cost, so you can trade with 5 grand without risking 5 grand of your own personal money. It's really easy to do. It's just like any other trading. You can add leverage. The leverage is limited, so you can't do like 100x leverage. You can set take profit, stop loss. You can trade any crypto asset. It's all based on Hyperliquid. It's super easy. On top of that, it also has, you have certain rules. So if I go back to the challenges, so if you just want if you want to start with $5,000, and there's an initial evaluation stage, so you need to prove that you actually know how to trade before they start sharing profit with you. But you can pay, it's $25 and they'll give you 5k, and all you have to do is make less than $500 profit, and then you get 5k to go really trade and share profit with. You can't lose more than 3% in a day, and you can't lose more than 3% overall. But $25 to get 5 grand to trade with, it's a great way for people to stay in the market, learn how to trade without risking their capital, because people are so risk averse right now. Obviously you could do up to 100k. 100k is $450, which still pretty cheap, given that if you pass, any profit you make you'll be getting 80% of, and then obviously they've got different fees depending on what you want to do. There is a free trial option as well, so you can just go and trade. It has the rules, so you can do it. You obviously don't get funded if you pass it, which is the negative. But yeah, I'll drop the link. I think there's a specific link, because I'm sure they're giving out some free trials right now as well, and free funded accounts. So let's I'll drop the link in the description. I'll do a post on it in CC Pro as well. But I highly recommend you checking it out. I've traded prop firms on FX, on currencies, on gold, silver. I would say this is one of the best platforms I've ever used. They make the rules really clear and easy to understand, and they're adding prediction markets soon as well, which will be super interesting. Like I say, proper, it's a real business as well. They're going to do really well long term. I have every faith in them. But yeah, if you want to learn how to trade, I don't think there's an easier way than doing it like this, because there's real money at stake. And yeah, I mean, you spend what, $50 and you get 10 grand to play about with. It's not a bad deal, I would say. Panda said, what happened to Swissborg? Well, to be fair, Swissborg still, Swissborg company still doing pretty well. Borg suffered like every other market has. I think well, lost my hat on that one. Well, hopefully you didn't sell on a loss, because to be honest, that's a massive mistake, and I think Borg will come very good in the next 6 to 12 months. I think the fact that Swissborg's now got MiCA compliance, MiCA regulation, sets it apart from some of the other platforms in Europe. Very few have MiCA compliance. Binance couldn't even get it. No, I'll cover Vantage in a minute, Agent Orange. I think Borg will do really well. I think once retail and trading volumes start to pick up, I think Borg will do really well. But Swissborg itself, still the best crypto app in the space. Still the best place to buy, sell, store any of your crypto. I would trust Swissborg over every single other platform. So yeah, I don't really have too much to say about Swissborg. I think it's just, the 10-10 liquidation event with Binance absolutely killed every element of crypto. I don't see any coin outside 3 or 4 that have actually performed since then, and I think Borg's just part of that fate as well. I think also what the 10th of October really did was crush any newcomers' faith in crypto. It basically convinced everybody that crypto was a scam. People sold and they left, and they haven't came back yet, because there's no reason to. Once the market picks up, there's hype, there's people talking about it, there's a bit of FOMO, Borg will start to rise again. And yeah, one of my biggest holdings, still don't really have any concerns over it. And like I say, the Swissborg app, safest and easiest place to buy and sell crypto. So yeah, and now it's regulated as well. So what more do you need? Agent Orange is asking about TGE. I think it's a pretty straightforward question. Like, I don't know any token that's TGE'd in the last 2 years that's not down 75 to 99%. TGE in tokens is just, it's not even it just doesn't make any sense for any project right now. I think if you TGE a token that doesn't have a revenue stream or a real business behind it, in terms of to buy the token like Hyperliquid, that there's an actual buy and burn mechanism or refund profits through the token, I think every token's going to struggle. I think new tokens, TGEs, all stuff like that, have no hype or excitement around them right now, because people have lost so much money in the past. So it just doesn't make sense from a market point of view. It makes zero sense to TGE during these market conditions. There's no buy pressure on altcoins. If you look at the other chart, you can see, we're down basically back to 2023 levels for some of the smaller coins. So yeah, it just doesn't make sense. All right. I was just jumping at CC Pro. Somebody asked me about Polkadot, and I had kind of forgot about it. So let's talk about Polkadot. Polkadot continues its downtrend on the weekly. Looks like it's going to be pretty close to putting in a new weekly low since forever. Pretty disappointing for Polkadot, to be fair. I'm still bullish on it long term, and why the reason I'm bullish on it is they've flipped their tokenomics. So Polkadot is less inflationary than it used to be. I think there's aggressive supply cuts coming. They're trying to make it more disinflationary. It's never going to be deflation, I don't think, as a token. I think they seem to be ramping up marketing efforts. I was listening to a podcast the other day that was sponsored by Polkadot Foundation, I think, or just Polkadot in general, which was interesting to see. But I think that's a response because I think there's less active users, less active builders, less active addresses. So for me, I think I still have full faith in Polkadot long term. It's still one of the kind of blue chip, as people like to call it, cryptos. I think they are trying to build on it. I think what is going on across the entire market, whether you look at Polkadot, whether you look at Avalanche, for example, VeChain, Chainlink, you could literally go through. Near doing all right, I suppose. But if you go through the entire space, it's almost like teams are just in hibernation mode. They're still building, they're still working away on the project, but they're very quiet, and it's almost like stealth mode. And a big part of that, I spoke to a founder a few days ago, and a big part of that is you can be noisy and you can spend a lot on marketing right now, but the audience that you're targeting is so small because most people aren't paying attention to crypto. Big investors aren't paying attention to crypto. Wall Street's not paying attention to crypto. So you're basically just throwing money at nothing because there's no one paying attention. And basically what every team seems to be doing is just continue to build, continue to innovate and get things ready so that once there is attention and there is hype and there is investors paying attention to crypto, they can kind of spark the market machine, but they've already got the product ready to deliver. I'm not saying that is Polkadot, that's Chainlink, that's whatever. I just get that feeling whenever I talk to people, it's almost like, what's the point in spending 20k on a marketing campaign right now when no one's paying attention to crypto? And I kind of get it. I do think the better times will return. I think we've saw a massive tidal wave of energy and liquidity float out of crypto into the AI trade, chasing those kind of short-term gains. Like I said at the start, I think the AI trade's starting to unwind a little bit, and if the Clarity Act passes, then where do people look for their next 5, 10, 20x return? It's not going to be an AI anymore because they're already ran up. So where's the next one? It's going to be crypto. And I'll hold my hands up. I've said this for 2 years. I didn't realize there was so much air in the AI trade as there is. But I think it's coming to an end now. We're starting to see that with earnings concerns. We're starting to see it with, OpenAI are talking about not IPOing this year. You've got big AI companies starting to reduce their earnings forecasts. That's all bearish for a stock investor, but they are going to turn their attentions to crypto very soon. And like we spoke about earlier, AI and crypto go hand in hand. Let's see. Dick says market hasn't rallied. Everyone said the same about XRP and Top Pump. Shiv, DM me on CC Pro. Yeah, they do have relationship managers. It depends what you want though. You'd be better just contacting support, if I'm brutally honest. Mitch says thoughts on Alvara. Do you know what? I'm still bullish on Alvara as a product and as a project. I think Alvara makes a lot of sense. I think Alvara, I think in the way people are going to look at investing moving forward is that you need a bit of everything. I think being 100% crypto over the last 3 years has been terrible. Most people are down 60, 70, 80%. I think if you were 100% AI, again, you probably had some winners, some losers, and you're probably up, but over the next 2 years, you'd probably end up down. If you're 100% metals, again, volatile, whatever. If you're 100% cash, not great. I think what things like Alvaro are doing is they're pitching themselves ready for when people start to build their own kind of index fund and their own portfolio on chain. I think they're ahead of the game a little bit, but I think there will be competition. I think everything's going to live on chain in the next few years, whether it be gold, silver, SpaceX, Tesla, Bitcoin, Solana. You're just going to buy it on chain and you're going to have it in one portfolio. Now, if you could just one click and buy a whole host of things, that's really attractive to a lot of investors, and I think that's why Alvara's bullish. I've not added recently, and one of the reasons I've not is, like I said at the start, is I think when the market's down, when Bitcoin's at 64k, I'd rather buy some Bitcoin because I might never get a chance to buy it at 64k. Solana down in the 60s, I think Solana's a great buy. So I'd rather, during fearful times, buy things that are really cheap compared to where I think they might never go again. Whereas even if you buy Alvaro in the next 3 months, it's still going to be relatively cheap to where we've bought it. And I think you also want to consolidate your portfolio a little bit when crypto's cheap, like it is now. BDon's on. I've not seen BDon in a while. Jamie, if Japan continues to hike rates and push the yield up along with the Iran war, do you believe the bottom is still in, and what would America do to fight it? So I think Japan will increase rates. I think the Iran war is about to end. I guess futures open later tonight, but I think oil could drop into Monday quite a bit, especially if we do get some kind of peace in Iran. But I think, to be honest, the worst effects of the Iran war have now been felt, and I think life should get better in terms of an inflation point of view and rates. What can the US do? Well, the US is going to do the same thing over the next 3 years, whether they're in an Iran war or not, whether Japan hikes or not, and that is they're eventually going to have to buy their own bonds. I think they're trying to fight it right now, but the US can't afford the bond market to continue to spiral out of control, and eventually they're going to buy their own bonds. They're already buying their own treasuries, so anything less than a 2-year term is a treasury, and they're already buying all this debt, which is keeping the short end rates down. If the 10-year gets up to 5%, which is getting close to be fair, they'll start to buy bonds, no doubt about it. And I do think they'll sacrifice stocks to save the bond market, so they'll allow people to rotate out of stocks and buy bonds. I also think the Kevin Walsh appointment is about saving the bond market. He's going to allow banks to buy unlimited amounts of bonds. It's not going to count against their risk profile, especially with stable coins. And then that stable coin growth, that's why everybody's so bullish on stable coins, is because stable coins need to be backed by treasuries, which creates more buying demand. So as crypto takes off, stable coin demand takes off. Stable coin demand brings buyers to the bond market. So yeah, there's a few things at play, but ultimately they'll eventually buy their own bonds like they did during COVID. You just think markets seem unfazed by this now. Doesn't seem to make the markets flinch in comparison. Yeah, that's kind of my point. It's like Bitcoin doesn't care about the Iran war anymore. It did, maybe here, maybe in here, maybe it was about inflation and rate hikes. I think as well as if you read Twitter, if you read Twitter around April, May time, inflation was going to 9%. Inflation jumped 1 month and is now posting negative month-over-month inflation. So I think the bears are really noisy. They're really hyperbolic. There's a lot of hugely oversimplistic, they're going to have to hike rates because of blah, blah, blah. Well, if they hike rates, then the interest expense on the debt is going to go through the roof. So I think the markets have priced in potential rate hikes, and I think that's what's really bullish, because if they don't hike and then there's chat about cuts, the market's going to take off and we're going to see a massive end of year rally. I think I think this this one's really crucial, this 16th of September meeting. Right now, there's a 56% chance that they hike either before or at that meeting. If we don't get a hike in July, it'll be interesting to see what this number does. But as this number starts to come down, assuming I'm right, as this number starts to come down and this number goes to 0, because this is priced in 2 rate hikes between now and September, that'll go to 0. In my eyes, that'll go to 0. That'll come down to maybe 10-15%. That's going to be bullish for markets, and that's why I think by the middle of August, Bitcoin will be above 72k. I think by October time, we're probably talking 85 to 90k, if not higher. And I do think by the end of the year, we're starting to see that bullish momentum towards 100k, because I think by the end of the year, the markets will be starting to price in rate cuts. And that's all before we talk about AI. If AI really starts to deliver some of these productivity and some of these price efficiencies, you could have a real fast drop in inflation. And again, the Fed will then be having to pivot towards rate cuts quicker than anyone expects right now. In fact, right now, the markets have priced in no rate cut between now and September 2027. Zero rate cut. 0% chance of it happening between now and September 2027. That's why markets are down so much, because they have zero thoughts that there will be a rate cut between now and September 2027. I think we'll have at least 2. And I think that's going to cause a huge flip, because they're so bearish on rate cuts right now, and then they're going to start to be bullish on them, and that's going to send markets much higher. And I think it all starts around September, October time this year. But I think markets will start to sniff it out based on Wednesday's press conference. But I could be wrong. But that's kind of what I'm viewing. We'll maybe do a live stream for the Fed meeting. We've not done that in a few months. We'll maybe do that on Wednesday. We'll maybe stream an hour after the Fed meeting and cover everything, because it is interesting for some people. Macro's a bit boring for most people, but yeah. I also watched a podcast today. They were talking a lot about Dogecoin. I've banged on about Dogecoin since January. I think two things. I think Dogecoin is a great addition to a portfolio, because it gives you that volatility risk premium, but it's kind of a safe risk meme. But also, I think this is, even if you don't hold it, if you don't buy it, it's one to watch, because I think Doge will be one of the key indicators that retail sentiment is starting to improve. People flock to memes. Obviously, Doge is the easiest one to buy. It's also the biggest one. I think once we reclaim this 200-week moving average on Dogecoin, I think the entire market will feel completely different. Sentiment will be better. People will be feeling positive, and we'll see a lot more liquidity in the markets. So that's one I'm watching as well. But if you don't have Dogecoin, I think it's a great addition to a portfolio. I think Clarity will pass, yes. I don't know when. I think they need to pass it in the next 2 weeks. Could you see Solana overtake it? Nah, I can't actually. I am mega bullish Solana. I think I've got I'm pretty close with Solana Foundation, super teams. Love Solana, but I think, especially when you talk about Wall Street and big institutions, one of the things they love is size, and they like to allocate to things that are already kind of grown and proven out. And I think Ethereum's definitely that. I'm not a massive Ethereum bull, but you look at RWAs on chain, Solana catches all the headlines for growth, holder count, new tokens coming on chain. They're all coming to Solana. However, if you look at TVL and actual billions of dollars and where that money flow is, Ethereum's still 10, 20 times more. So I think Ethereum's just going to be just bigger and better for the next few years, because it already is. I also think Ethereum's revenue business is easy for Wall Street to understand, because it makes, every time something happens on chain, earns a fee. That's revenue for Ethereum. That to me is really easy for somebody from Wall Street to understand and invest in. Whereas you look at some of the other crypto protocols and it's like, oh, we make money if we do X, Y, and Z, and then it's deflationary and it's tokenomic. Like, they just can't understand it. They just don't care. They just want to see revenue. And I think Ethereum's more set up to be a Wall Street type investment company than anything else right now. Sorry, Lee Crypto, I had to change the time. I've got something on that I need to do tonight, so apologies. Seanzy, if Bitcoin's at all-time highs, where's Solana? Solana will break all-time high in the next run. Solana will definitely breach this 260 level easy. I mean, this is a weekly close, so it did get to what, 3,295? Yeah, Solana will be $500 in the next few years, no doubt about it. I think the other thing that people are mispricing is the fact that Solana, to me, is actually going to be the home of more DeFi type stuff. So borrowing, lending, posting Solana or your tokenized SpaceX as collateral and borrowing USDC. Most people still don't know how to do that or why you would do it. But if you look at some of the things on chain, if you hold tokenized, if you hold tokenized gold, like Paxos or Tether Gold, you can pledge it as collateral and you can borrow USDC sometimes as low as like 1 or 2%, and then you can go and buy crypto, or you can take it out and go and spend it in the real world without ever selling your gold. Most people don't do things like that yet. I think they will in the future. I think they'll start to understand that's the benefits of crypto, and it means you never sell your assets, you just borrow against it. That's what TradFi do. That's how the billionaires make money and stay wealthy. They borrow against their assets and buy other assets. DeFi and crypto make it possible for anyone, and that is the biggest benefit of DeFi, and I just don't think anyone's ever properly understood it or got to it yet. All right, so we have some good questions, to be fair. Let's see who we think deserves some Solana. I feel like I'm going to give Ian Mack some, just because he seems like the only person in the world that I know that actually bought into the Vala Vault. So Ian Mack, DM us on Twitter, or if you're in CC Pro, DM us. I'll send you some Solana. Let's see who else. Let's see, any good question. Jamie U2V4I, for your question on Japan. Drop me a DM. I'll send you some Solana. And let's see. Lewis Glasgow, I suppose you've asked a few questions. You're always on. You've asked a few questions. You asked about Xborg. Send me some Solana, and send me your wallet address. I'll send you some Solana. DM me on Discord. DM us on Twitter somehow, and I'll get you some Solana over to you. But thanks very much for tuning in. I'll be back. I'll try and do a live stream on Wednesday covering the Fed meeting. It is probably one of the most important ones of the year, I think, because if we don't get a rate hike in July, there's no way Kevin Walsh is going to hike in September right before the midterms. He is Trump's appointee, regardless of how bearish he tries to sound on every single press conference. But overall, thanks very much for tuning in. I'll be back, and we'll see you all very soon.